Yes, is I'm audible, sir? Yes, technical team, is I'm
Yes,
audible?
yes, sir.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Lukesh Kadu, Assistant Professor, Information Technology Department, Shanankar Kutchi Engineering College, welcomes you all on the fifth day, session 2 of AICT IST sponsored 1 week online refresher program on developing secure IoT applications organized by IT Department, SAKEC. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce today our esteemed speaker, Miss Geeta Gosavi, ma'am. Ma'am is Principal Technical Officer, CDAC, Pune. She has extensive experience in engineering and management, research and development. She is expert in leadership and mentoring, test and problem solving in research and development industry. She has done a significant study, analysis, capacity building, and implementations in upcoming thrust area IoT, which leads to the production capability for smart city applications. She is actively involved in stakeholder communications, solutions designing, and project coordinations. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. Ma'am is going to enlighten us on the topic of IoT middleware and system designing, a holistic view. Now, I would like to request our speaker to start the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir, for the introduction. And thank you, Shan Anchor, for giving me this excellent opportunity. This is the third, session in various programs which they have conducted. And we are already on the fifth day. So I suppose, most of the attendees here are very well versed with various concepts of Internet of Things. And that is the reason, since I think we all are now versed with various bricks which form the IoT ecosystem. Now it's time to connect all of them together, and hence the topic of IoT middlewares is what I'm going to focus on today. And since it is about developing secure IoT applications, we will look into IoT middleware specifically from the security perspective. So I'll just start sharing my screen. Okay, so IoT middleware and security, a holistic view is what we are going to see today. So not to give any great corporate presentation here, and I'm sure all of you know about what CDAC is. So CDAC, that is Center for Development of Advanced Computing, is a premier R&D organization of MITI, that is Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. So there are two branches. It branches out into two areas. One is CDAC is as a finishing school, and other is CDAC as IT and E organization. Okay, so I am a member of IT and E organization branch of CDAC. So we do various projects. Right into from research and development to actual application delivery, right? So into multiple domains, which you can see in this image, which is given on this slide. So it starts with, so high performance computing is the core area from where CDAC started off, and it's still doing a lot of great work in HPC area. However, there are a lot of other allied areas as well as some new areas which were taken up in due course since the inception of this organization. So which includes, allied things to HPC like grid computing, cloud computing, and then we work on many open source and web technologies, information security, professional electronics like embedded and VLSI, also multilingual computing. There are multiple projects which happen. These are all the enabling technologies. Now on the application vertical side, we have scientific computing applications, e-learning, agriculture is one area, e-governance, health informatics, and again, it's not limited to only those which are listed here. In addition to this, there are areas like Internet of Things, multiple smart city applications. So all these are the areas in which CDAC contributes. So there are 12 CDAC centers across India with approximately 3,200 odd employees. Okay, so this is a brief. So today, just getting to the session outline. So first and foremost, we will see what an IoT middleware is. So it will have the generic things like the definition, what are the layers of an IoT middleware. Now, when it comes to IoT middleware, what are the security concerns which you should be worried about? And of course, it would be related to the multiple layers in an IoT middleware and various devices, the plug and play devices which connect to the middleware and various applications to which the middleware caters to, right? So these are the things and how exactly to secure this IoT middleware. I'll take you through certain open source kits which are available, which can be integrated into the middleware thing. Now, why I have chosen this topic, let me give you a brief background. So when we started off with Internet of Things, this was the first thing which we pitched into in year 2013-14. So we started looking into multiple IoT middlewares which are available. So IoT devices, we all know those are like the constrained devices, specifically the constrained devices. Of course, there are non-constrained devices as well in the IoT ecosystem. However, the major focus area is of the constrained devices. So these devices are the ones which are going to, these are all heterogeneous. So they work on different technologies, right? They support different protocols. So making these devices talk to each other is a challenge. And then these devices, managing these devices is another challenge. Managing various applications to which these devices provide data to is the third aspect. And then managing the users who use these applications is one more thing which we're supposed to do. So we need an umbrella in order to, kind of cover all these things. And in order, we need something which will gel up all these things into one. And that is where the concept of IoT middleware came into picture. So middleware is not new. It is for various purposes, we already use the middlewares. So why can't we have something specific to Internet of Things? And that is how we started off with this project. And we have our own, IoT middleware. The other part of this session today is going to be IoT ethics. So what are the ethical challenges? So security is one aspect. However, when we build any solution, when we do some design thinking, what is important is our ethical approach towards building that solution. That is important. And it is not only limited to the software developers, but it is limited to all the stakeholders who contribute to that solution development. So what are the ethical challenges? What are the major worries which many of us know about, which we come across, and how to be prepared for that, and what exactly we mean by the ethical design. Okay, so the first part, which is the IoT middleware. So if you, Jeff Bezos, as we all know who he is. So if you build a great experience, customers tell each other about that. So middleware is all about giving an experience to the customers who are using it in terms of nullifying the complexities, abstracting the actual behavior of these devices, providing them with a tool which will help them plug and play the devices, and providing applications on the other part of the middleware. So basically, the middleware is having is middleware is both. It is northbound and southbound, right? So that is what is the functionality of the middleware. So if you see how Gartner defines the middleware is, so it's a great forecast partner. So they've defined middleware as a software glue that helps programs and databases. So though it's only databases which is listed here, it could be an array of things. So databases may be on different computers, and it helps, the software glue helps these programs and databases to work together. So its most basic function is to enable communication between different pieces of software. So as I have said, we are handling heterogeneity here, which is the core part of Internet of Things, right? Now, if we see Oxford Dictionary and try to see the definition of middleware in very basic terms, neither related to IoT or, even IT. So basically it acts as a bridge between an operating system or a database and application, especially on a network. Okay, so it's a bridge which will take us from one level to another level. So especially on a network is how it is defined. Okay, so for example, we install a lot of drivers for the hardware to work. So similar way, this middleware is going to expose a set of APIs to your applications. And with the help of these APIs, what you can do is you can fetch data from the IoT device, or even you can actuate an actuator. So the basic CRUD operations which you do on any database is what you can do on various devices which connect to the middleware. Okay, so going to the architecture layers of a middleware, let's start from the southbound interface, that is the bottom. So at the bottom, what we have is the sensors, connectivity, and the network layer. Okay, so the sensors are actuators, it could be tags, even the RFID tags or barcode, or it could be a set of devices which are going to connect to our IoT middleware. Then we have gateway and the network. So I'm sure you might have gone through things like Raspberry Pi or Arduino Uno, or there are many other commercial gateways as well in the market. The gateway and the network layer is what comes next. So basically a gateway is something which will help the IoT device actually talk to the service interface, right? After that, what comes is the management services. So of course, so in gateway, as I forgot to mention, we have gateway and network, because network is something which is going to help the devices communicate with each other. So we are going to have Wi-Fi, Ethernet. So the gateways, which we think in IoT middleware, the very popular choice is the multi-protocol gateways, okay, which will support multiple protocols. So a gateway which supports Wi-Fi as well as Ethernet, as well as possibly some devices which connect on Bluetooth would. So something of that sort would be a great choice. So that is what is the gateway and the network layer. Then what we have next is the management service layer. So in management service layer, it has a set of services. It's a pure software layer, we could say. It will help you in device configuration, modeling, and management. Okay. So also some data flow management, some security related services, all the services are going. So if you think of any microservice architecture, this layer is going to consist of, I don't know, thousands and, in the count of that kind of services, which basically these are nothing but the services which you can expose to the applications which will be built using these services. And hence the top layer, the topmost layer is the application. So applications, IoT applications, there are plenty. So they can't come in the cloud here given in the image. So just some examples could be environmental related applications, healthcare related, retail, people tracking, energy, transportation. So you can name as many applications, IoT applications at the application layer. So this is the very basic structure of an IoT middleware. Now, if we go stepwise and try to understand every layer, again here I have started from the southbound interface. So the sensor connectivity and network layer, which is the bottommost layer which we saw. So as I have said here, there are multiple technologies which are listed, which come at this particular level. So, we could have Wi-Fi, Ethernet, then ultra wideband, Zigbee, and you can name many technologies here. So they lie at the bottom layer. And then again, in the sensors could be solid state sensors, electromag, it could be infrared, and many. Even the sensors which we have in our mobile phone, like the accelerometer or the gyrometer. So these are also some sort of sensors, so which you can interface with. So basically, when any application is built using these sensors, an Android application, so there are interfaces which get data from these sensors, and that is how you are able to process the data. Now coming to the next layer, which is gateway and network layer. So at gateway and network layer, you will have microcontrollers, as I have said. So one could be any radio communication module, some embedded OS kind of module, SIM module. So all these things will form the gateway and the network layer. So these gateways could be Raspberry Pi, as I have said, right? Because we have these microcontrollers as well here, signal processors, modulators, and then the technologies which they support could be the ones which are listed at the top: Wi-Fi, Ethernet, so GSM, UMTS, LTE, and so on. Now, the management service layer, as I have said, it's a pure software component, and it could have things like analyzing. So once you, from the sensors, once you get the data using the gateways, what we have next is what to do with this data. So we have to make meaning out of the data which has been collected. Now we have to do some sort of analytics, some data mining, okay, some text mining, and all these things, predictive analysis, because IoT is important for prediction as well. So all these things will happen at the management service layer. So we will have services related to these device management services. So various sensors, various devices which connect to the IoT middleware. So managing these devices, handling the configurations of these devices, managing the performance, just like we do in a NMS. Okay, so a network management system. So similar way we have a device management system in this case. Then, for example, if you consider a smart home application, in that case, we have to define some rules, because we have to make meaning out of it. We have to have this if then statements, if else statements, if then statements, right? So all the rule definitions, modeling, simulation, even execution is what will take place at the management service layer. Then what we have is the application layer. So we have already seen there are multiple applications which play a role, and these applications are something which the user is concerned about, and hence application layer is something which the user is interested in. Now, as I have said, that when we started with the complete middleware thing, so we have all these middlewares which you can see here. These are some of the popular middlewares. There are many middlewares which are available. Few of them are open source, few of them are commercialized. There are COT solutions which are available. So one, even European Union, as you can see, IRC is one of the things which is listed here, which is European Research Cluster on IoT. So they have multiple projects when IoT was actually taking off the market. So IRC has multiple projects into middleware domain, in addition to many other research and development aspects of Internet of Things. Then there are middlewares like Xively, iCore, LinkSmart. I'm sure most of us know here about ThingSpeak, because it provides these APIs, which today also you can use. If you are using a Raspberry Pi and if you are connecting some devices to it, you can use ThingSpeak APIs, which can actually take the data and show the graph to you, as in what were the changes in the temperature or whichever sensor you have. So because ThingSpeak gives APIs to interact with the sensors. Okay, then we have ThingWorks, and yes, Butler. There was another middleware called IoT. It's not a middleware, it's Internet of Things Architecture, IoT-A, which you can see here with this red globe. So that is what we have referred when we designed, or when we decided about the functional architecture of our IoT middleware. So IoT-A is nothing but it will provide you with multiple, it will provide you basically with ARM, ARM, which is Architecture Reference Model. Okay, so the ARM is something which is a set of requirements which are gathered and which are documented, which you should, which are the best practices or the guidelines in developing the IoT middleware. So once you go through these documents, you'll understand that what your middleware should possess, what are the functionalities and what are the things which it should cater to for it to be, a successful middleware. So that is the deliverable of IoT-A basically. Now, a lot of things about middleware have been discussed. Now, moving on to the core, topic of today's discussion, which is security. So, middlewares are developed, but how to develop a secure middleware? Because every application is going to be handled using IoT middleware. So, in that case, it is important that the middleware itself is secure, so that there are no more potential threats. Now, what could be the potential threats? So this is a list of certain potential threats. What if the IoT device is compromised? What if there's a leakage and misuse of some personal information? There is threat to people's safety. Moreover, as I have said, in IoT, what we are focusing on are the constrained devices. Now, these constrained devices they have a small form factor. They are constrained in terms of memory. They are constrained in terms of power. So all these things are make the device constrained device. Now, because of all these constraints which it possesses, it is incapable of performing, any heavier cryptographic algorithm. Because security is not something new. We have very well established algorithms for dealing with security aspect. Okay, and that is how we are running the whole business of internet today. However, why we are particularly focusing on IoT security is because it has its own flavor, and that is the reason when we choose the security, aspect of the security technology, which or the protocols which we should use for Internet of Things, we have to think of certain criteria. So one of them is the constrained devices cannot have, any heavier cryptographic algorithm. It is difficult for them to process, to perform, and to maintain the energy to do that. The other aspect is mostly the applications, the IoT applications work on wireless, right? So now, if the wireless networks are prone to things like eavesdropping, jamming, so these are some popular potential threats which any wireless network possesses. So the same thing are going to come in Internet of Things. So it is important to understand how we can deal with these issues. Okay. Now, moving on to the potential threats, if you see this particular image, you have a big cloud in between, which is nothing but internet. So these all applications like smart home, smart grid, smart healthcare are all connected to the internet through their respective IoT gateways. Okay, so each application is going to have its own sensors connected to it, and again it is going to have some IoT gateway, and they are connected to the IoT server. Okay, so they are publishing. So I am sure you have gone through MQTT. So you all are very well aware about MQTT and allied technologies which help in this publishing subscribing job. Okay, so these all sensors are publishing data to the IoT server to make sense out of it, and of course the IoT server will process it and it will give the result to those who have subscribed to it. Okay, so now here, starting from the left hand side top, so the adversary says that what if the adversary acts as a false application attempting to access information which is not intended for it. So why I'm saying this is, you imagine an IoT ecosystem. Now, even if I consider the office in which I'm sitting right now, one office building. So one office building can have multiple IoT applications. We could have one application in order to manage the HVAC. Okay, so to auto manage the temperature of the ambient temperature and the ambient lighting as well of the complete system. That could be one application. Second application could be for the safety. For example, the fire alarms or the sprinklers could be a part of that application, and the exit and entries to the building could also be a part of that application. So that could be one more application. There could be another application which could be office management system, which could have the attendance system into it, and multiple systems. So these are basically the siloed application. However, they all are connected to a server, okay, and they all are having their own sets of devices, which are though different, still they are all under one umbrella. So now, in such case, what if some particular adversary acts as a false application, an attempt? So what if the fire application is hacked, and what if it is trying to get information from the temperature sensor, which is being used in the ambient temperature application? So you can see what you can even imagine what kind of havoc it would cause if such kind of things happen. Now, what if the adversary alters a sensor to report false reading? Still difficult. Still the life can become very difficult if the sensor readings are, if the sensor is hacked and if false readings are being reported, because a complete rules, set of rules, or the complete business logic is based on what all sensor readings we are getting, right? So it could again be land us into a great problem. And now, what if adversary monitors sensor readings to track customer usage? Okay, so this is in case of a smart grid application. So here, the usage of the customer, the electricity usage, basically, because it's a smart grid application. So the sensor readings which are coming are given to the electricity board, and the electricity bill is generated based on that. However, the adversary is monitoring the sensor readings, and if it tries to pitch in and change those, it could be a great bounce back to the customer. Okay, so that could be one of the issues. Now, adversary creates a spoofing sensor to the system. So a sensor which, because when we think of an IoT middleware, we think of plug and play. So there are RESTful APIs which are exposed. Of course, there's a lot of security thing which is taken care at the back end. However, this is one threat where the adversary may try to spoof a sensor to the system. A sensor which is not a part of the system could try to be a part of the system and start sending some jargon data. That could also cause a greater problem. Think of a healthcare application where the complete medication system is based on what are the readings. So in this case, it will become, if a spoofing sensor tries to send some data, and based on which the complete medical things which are given to that person are being defined, it could create a major problem. Okay. Now, adversary attacks communication conduit between the sensor and the application. So here it is about attacking the communication channel. So this could also, and this is between the sensor and server and the applications. Okay, so this is the application side. So that all these things are some of the potential threats. Now, if we see the security taxonomy, so the security in IoT middleware is divided into two things. One is what are the region of attack, and then what are the security requirements. So if we try to elaborate both of these, in case of region of attack, so as I have said, we have northbound and southbound interface. Okay, so the entities would mean both. It could have the top end, that is the northbound interface, where the various applications are connecting to the middleware, and also there are various devices which are connecting to the middleware and the middleware itself. So these are various regions of attack. So the attack could be on the application from the northbound side, from the southbound side, or it could be on the middleware itself. And then the second region of attack is the data. So the data could be the stored data, because the middleware is going to have its own data store, its own database. So the attack could be on that data, or attack could be on the data which is being transmitted. As we have seen here, one of the adversary was to attack on the communication conduit. So here the data which is being transmitted is one area which we have to secure. How is the data being transmitted? It should be transmitted over a secure channel, right? Now, the other thing could be the communication channel. So the communication channel, again, as I've said, northbound and southbound interface. So the communication between the middleware and the applications is at the northbound interface, and the communication between the middleware and the devices which connect to it is at the southbound interface. So there are two things which are out of the control of the middleware, which should again be secured. Okay. Now, when it comes to security requirements, there are multiple things which come under a security umbrella. However, some major things which should be taken care are like the authentication, the authorization and access control, protecting the communication channel, the data confidentiality, the data integrity. Okay. Now, as I have told you about this IoT-A, and moving on to how exactly we decided to, take care of and to secure our IoT middleware. So that is the level which we are going to as of now. So now this IoT is this image which you see in front of you is nothing but the architecture reference model. So the architecture reference model has multiple blocks or multiple layers. So we all know the bottom two layers, which is device and communication. So because we have gone through IoT middleware layers earlier. Now, in between what we have is the service organization, process management, virtual entity, IoT service. Top layer, again, we know which is applications. So the middle thing is nothing but the management services, which we have spoken about earlier. Again, the the vertical dark blue things which you see on both the sides. On the left hand side is management, and on the rightmost side, it's security. So these are the management services which cater to the management of the devices, the applications, the users, and security spans across all the management services. So this is a an architecture, a reference architecture in order to build any middleware. Now we'll try to see what each building block here does. Okay, so I'll quickly take you through all these building blocks. So these building blocks are known as the functional groups. Each of them is one functional group, and there is a lot of interaction happening between these functional groups. So the management group, which you see here, it helps in addressing the interactions between all functional groups, okay, because it's managing. It attends unexpected issues like dies, link failures, queue overload, and so on and so forth. So that is what is also managed at this layer. It helps achieve flexibility, which is handling changes in use case requests, etc. It helps in fault handling, that is detecting of existing failures, repair, and so on and so forth. Now the service organization group is basically the communication hub for all functional groups. Okay, so the service organization group will organize all the services which you write for, say, for example, the example which I've given here is to map a high-level user requirement. So, for example, give me the temperature of room number 123 is mapped to a service and the name of the service. Okay, so this management is done at the service organization layer. Also, there are virtual entities. So every device which let's say for a temperature sensor or humidity sensor, which we know as a user is a temperature sensor. For the IoT middleware, it changes into a virtual entity. So it is given some identification, some ID, which is a unique ID. It could be an IP address, or there are multiple ways to identify a device. And then what is important is these virtual entities are able to communicate with the service organization group and are able to get resolved. So this things is done by the service organization. Now, what services, as you already know, they help in discovery, lookup, and name resolution of IoT services. That is what is the IoT service group. Virtual entity will discover and look up the services and will provide the information about the virtual entity. Okay, so service organization we have already seen. Yes, in communication there is plethora of technologies which we have already seen previously when I explained you about the multiple layers. Security layer will address trust, security, privacy. We'll see more when I show you the architecture, the functional architecture of the IoT middleware, which we have designed based on the architecture reference model and multiple other architectures which are available. So where you'll see sub-layers of the security layer. The process management, as I have said, it helps in integration of business processes. So basically, very important for the applications. Okay, so it provides addition and extension to industry standards. For example, your application is based on Modbus or any particular protocol which is specific to that application. So the changes, the interfaces which are required for the integration of these applications are handled by the process management group. Okay. Now, as this is one of now what we are doing is we are moving to the IoT middlewares and trying to understand what do they have within them for the implementing security. So this is one middleware called LinkSmart. So if you can see, in addition to multiple other layers, and I have given what each of these abbreviation means. Like in device abstraction, we have the sensor platform, we have the device gateway, and so on. We all know this, but the black circle is, and the black this rectangle is what we'll concentrate on. So because that is the layer which handles networking and security. So here networking is taken care by the broker, because we all know about MQTT and what a broker is. So I'll not go into depth in that. And the security is taken care by the BGW, which is the IoT border gateway. Okay, so you'll tell me, see, there are so many gateways here. We have the DGW, which is device gateway. We have IGW, because this LinkSmart was specifically for supporting OPC. So that is the reason there is a industrial OPC gateway, because it was supporting industrial applications. Hence, that particular gateway is there. So this is, but the IoT border gateway is something which deals with the security of this middleware. So how? So going to this image, you can see the border gateway structure on the left hand side. Okay. And on the right hand side is any IoT autonomous system which tries to connect to the middleware. So any system will have a set of REST APIs. It will have some MQTT broker, some WebSocket applications. Okay. Now all of them, when they come to the border gateway has its own structure. It will have an HTTP proxy, an MQTT proxy. So every request will go through the border gateway, and will any external interface which connects from the left hand side, that you can see there is a internet cloud there, and any external interface which connects to the border gateway will go through all these proxies, will get authenticated. The bottom in between these two systems, you can see the OpenID Connect provider. So I'll tell you what this is in the upcoming slides. And then there is a Redis database, which is used in order to store the key value pairs of the authenticated users or the authenticated applications. So key value pairs is like Mr. X, whether is allowed to get into this application or to access this application or not. So authentication service is handled by Redis in case of LinkSmart. It is one of the options to do that. And then we have this OpenID connector. So this is the structure of a border gateway. And this is what is implemented in the IoT ecosystem for LinkSmart. So this is one way to handle it. So if you see this border gateway, what it does is it can authenticate and authorize access to HTTP, MQTT, and WebSocket services for the users. So generally, any service will fit into one of these or all of these. Okay. Now, what is OpenID Connect? It will allow clients to verify the identity of the end user based on the authentication performed by the authorization server. So it allows to obtain basic profile information about the end user in an interoperable and REST-like manner, because these are RESTful services. Because we are talking about a service-oriented architecture here. Okay, so that is nothing but OpenID Connect. There are a lot of open source implementations of OpenID Connect, and I'll tell you which are those and how they have been taken care in LinkSmart. So this is the slide for that. So here, as you can see, the LinkSmart border gateway, it has this key cloak and then auth 0. And so what they do is, key cloak is, these are the authentication or authorization providers. So if you are doing any local deployment, then you have to use Keycloak. If there is a cloud service deployment which is targeted, then it is Auth0, which helps in that. Now, the other thing which we have to think of when we have this IoT middleware and the applications is to create a TLS certificate, because we all know HTTPS security and HTTP. So these are web services, as I have been talking about, so they should be secured. And there are companies like Let's Encrypt, which will help you in giving a TLS certificate and will help you in acknowledging it across your communication channel. Then, as I have said, talked about Redis earlier, it's a cache access tokens, and it helps in storing these tokens as key value pairs. Okay, so this is the CDAC IoT middleware. Okay, so as you can see, the similar overlaps of layers you will find with a bit of more, with bit more elaboration. Okay, so we have at the bottom, at the lowest layer of middleware, we have the devices, various sensors. We have gateways like Raspberry Pi. I have also picturized one other communication gateway here. And then we have the communication layer. And from there, we have the other layers, which you can see the security layer. First, let's start with it, because that is the main thing which we have to focus on, which internally has authorization, authentication, identity management, key exchange and management, trust and reputation. So all these things play a role in the security. So these are the things which you have to take care of. In management layer, we have managing the applications or the projects which we create using the middleware. Then we have the service organization layer. We all know it caters to the management services, the IoT services, resolution, composition of services. So when we have to concat two services, if you want temperature and humidity, so this and thing is taken care by the service composition layer. So those services can be defined into this layer. And then we have event processing, we have notifications and alerts, which has rule engine. Okay. And then at the topmost, the web portal and the report generation and analytics, which basically cater to the application, end user application. Okay, so let's quickly go to the technologies. So now we already know that, as I have said earlier, there are many popular security protocols which are already available. So one of them is AES. However, can we use AES as such? So because of, as I have spoken about the constraint devices. So there is a type of AES which is called as AES CCM. Rather than type, I would say AES CCM is nothing but an operation mode of advanced encryption standard, and it is especially customized and designed for the constraint devices. So rather than going for AES directly, we can go for AES CCM in our case. Okay. Now, what it helps is it helps in privacy and authenticity. If you have seen, if you know about ZigBee, that is IEEE 802.15.4, which is a very popular, standard for IoT devices, and a lot of smart home applications will have ZigBee-based devices. So this AES CCM is by default provided with ZigBee. However, if not, you have to have it on your device. You have to port it on your devices so that it will help to make the to handle privacy and authenticity of that device. Okay. Then TLS, we all know it is a connection-oriented client-server communication. It helps in privacy, authentication, and integrity. It internally uses AES for symmetric, and in case of asymmetric, it uses RSA. We all know the popular protocol where it is used. It is HTTPS. Now, other technology is OAuth, which is open authentication, open standard authentication to be specific. So today, if you see when you install various applications from Google Play, you generally have two buttons, allow or deny. So when you click on allow, what it fires at the back end is the open authentication or open authorization protocol, is what helps you share your credentials of Gmail or whichever account you have registered with on Google Play Store. So it will internally do the authorization, and that is how it will return you the download, okay, or the installable. So this is a very popular protocol and proven protocol which can be implemented in your IoT middleware. It helps access the resources not only to the extent allowed by the owner, okay, only to that extent it will help to access the resources. So of course, beware when you click on the allow button, and it helps in authentication and authorization. Now, if we see various middleware systems which are available, and I have taken you through LinkSmart. So on the left hand side, the y-axis, you will see a list of middlewares. So these are many popular middlewares which are there in the market. And on the x-axis, on the top of this image, there are multiple requirements which are essential, which the middleware should cater to. So if you see the requirement number 1, 2, and 5, okay, so 1, 2, and requirement 3 to be specific in this. However, if I go numerically, it is 1, 2, and 5 at the top. So you can see multiple middlewares which handle all these requirements, 3 of them. So integrity and confidentiality, then there is access control and authentication. So see how the popular things are taken care by multiple middlewares. However, if you see certain requirements like secure device identity, okay, requirement number 3.2, or if you see requirement 3.3, which is anonymous identities or attestations. So these things are not taken care in any of the middlewares. Secure device identity is being taken care in LinkSmart, okay, which we have gone through. Because as we have seen about the OpenID Connect. So it is taken care in LinkSmart and Webinar. So only 2 middlewares. So there is a huge scope if we have to do work in the, in securing the IoT middleware more. There are multiple things, requirements, which we have to take care of in our middleware. And that is where we can make it more robust and give it for various applications, okay? So that brings me to the end of the securing the middleware part. And these are the references which were used for this presentation. Moving on to the next part, the next leap of the system, which is IoT ethics. And so to define what ethics is, ethics means knowing the difference between what you have a right to do and what is right to do, okay? So one thing is I have a right to do this. So if I have a right to do this, I'll do this. Okay, so that is one way people understand things. However, when you have a right to do it and when you do it, whether it is right or whether it is being done in a rightest context, or whether it does not hamper anything important or anything crucial. So these are the things which we have to know when we build any IoT solution, okay? And that is what we are going to see today, that what is ethical and what is not. And an awareness about this is very important because we are slowly moving to a world where things are getting smarter, where things around us, right from the cars which we use, right from the electricity meters which are going to get the electricity data from our household, right from if you all know about the MI purifier, water purifier which has come up, which is smart water purifier. So right from the refrigerator, right from the washing machines which we use in our house, all are getting smarter. However, when we buy this, it is important that we have a set of questionnaire which we can ask ourselves. So, these two things cannot go hand in hand. One thing is, to certain extent, what is my privacy expectation about the whole scenario, and second thing is advancement. So if we see these two things, it's difficult to bridge the gap. However, it is not impossible, and that is what we have to think of, and that is what we have to do. However, we as an individual or we as the end user of an IoT application, it is difficult to make policies. We are not policy makers, right? So there are other stakeholders who are decision makers. Let it be the government, or it could be the vendors who manufacture the IoT devices, who should be given the proper guidelines about for how to go about it. So all these stakeholders and the way they do things is what important, and it is important that they have an ethical approach towards doing what they are doing, and have an ethical approach in the sense they should do the right thing rather than doing it just as a matter of right. Okay. So if we see the defining features of Internet of Things as a technology, one of the feature is ubiquity and pervasiveness. So it is everywhere. So it is ubiquitous and it is pervasive. So it has been IoT has been in market not since 10 years or so. It has been there and it was widely used. If you see the production lines, there is a lot of automation which is already done there. However, today what we are doing is we are just trying to bring things to the internet. Okay, so we are just trying to add a flavor of internet to everything. But they had been there and they have been into existence since many years. Okay. Now, the second defining feature is miniaturization and invisibility. So, more and more we are progressing or advancing in Internet of Things. We are looking for miniaturization. We are looking for smaller chips, smaller chipsets. We are looking for the wristbands. We are looking for having a circuit which can be implanted in our bodies in order to monitor certain things. So we are looking for miniaturization and invisibility. Okay. The other aspect is about the ambiguity and ontology, because the data is huge and there are many devices. So defining the semantics and understanding, so there could be ambiguity which could be introduced because of this. Okay. Then the other defining feature is identification. So each entity which connects to this IoT ecosystem has to have some way of identifying itself. Then connectivity. It should be persistent. Okay, we cannot have intermittent connectivity here. It has to be persistent because at times we are thinking of real-time application. If not real-time, we are at least thinking of near real-time kind of applications. Then the mediation and autonomous agencies. So there are multiple mediators and agencies which play a role, which we'll see who they are in my upcoming slides. Then the embedded intelligence, right? Because we are using some embedded devices here. The seamless transfer of data, which is again very important. There are certain applications like healthcare applications where no data loss we cannot have any data loss, right? Then the distributed control, the control is distributed. The data, big data, because the data is huge, there is a lot of unpredictability and uncertainty. So let's go to what are the ethical challenges. So a few questions which we can ask ourselves is, now what the data which is retrieved by the sensors of the objects which are connected to IoT, who is the owner of that data? If I give the data for a particular application, if I'm sharing it from my mobile phone and the sensors of my mobile phone are being used for it, am I the owner of that data, or the person who is getting the data from me is the owner of that data, that is the service provider? Who is the owner of this data? It's unknown. Nobody has the answer to this question as of now, and it could enter into a debate if we try to speak about it. Then how to control the accessibility to this IoT system? What is the way? How can we control the accessibility to the IoT system? Again, we come to the access control part of security. Is IoT only for experts? So there is a huge digital divide. Today, I'm sure you might be knowing about the applications which the farmers use today, where earlier they had to go to the farm in order to turn on the motor for watering the farmlands, right? Today, what they are doing is everybody is sitting, the farmer is able to sit at their home, and they are able to control over GSM. There is a SIM card from their mobile phone. They are able to get identified, and they are able to remotely turn on and off, the motor to water the farmlands. So for me, as an, I could not say an IoT expert, but for me as an IoT person, I would say that this is one, IoT application. However, the farmer may not think so, or they may not even know what Internet of Things is for that matter. They may not even know that they are unknowingly using, IoT for this purpose. So there is a huge digital divide. Tomorrow, if I go to the farmer with some other application, which for which I want his, requirements to be collected or his viewpoint, it may completely be an unknown area for him. So there is a huge digital divide. He may not know internet at all. Forget about Internet of Things. Okay. So this is one question which we have to ask, that is IoT only for experts? Now, is there no coherent legal and democratic frame to delineate the limits of information sharing? This is another very important and very crucial question. So because there is no body, or there is no government body, or any stakeholder which controls this, which has control over information sharing. So whose right it is, and who is going to control this information which is being shared? Is there any limit to it? So there's nobody who defines this. Okay. Now let's go to multiple ethical challenges. So now talking about the economic incentive for data protection of the user. So nothing is directed to the user. So today, if Google uses the data from my mobile, the data in terms of, for crowdsourcing applications, like when we are going on a trip, or when we are going on a picnic, we tend to see whether there's a traffic in this particular area. So how does Google do that? Is Google accesses, of course, there's a lot of machine learning which is involved at the back end, but primarily what it does is it will access the sensors of your phone, and it will the data, it is sensed. So if there are multiple people who are having their mobile phones, and already they have their location services on, and what Google does is it keeps a track whether they are stuck at a particular place. So if they are stuck, so if this then that, so if they are stuck at that particular place, it means there is some traffic jam happening. And of course there are satellites as well. So it's a mix of multiple technologies which it uses, and this is how. Now when it is using some application from my mobile, for let it be GPS, or let it be the accelerometer, or let it be the accelerometer to understand the road conditions, or so on and so forth. I'm not getting any economic incentive. Am I being paid for it? So no, I'm not being paid for it, though the sensors are being used from my phone. So the economic incentives for data protection are limited to businesses which are creating IoT applications and devices. So they don't reach to the user as such. So it's a challenge. Then there is incomplete information on the consequence of data disclosure. So there's no transparency which is maintained. So the user often has incomplete information about the consequence of disclosing the data. So either voluntarily or involuntarily, whatever means they are going to take the data from you. So there is lack of information which affects the privacy decision. So the user does not know what are the consequences of sharing the data. And that is another challenge. Then there is too large information space about the consequence of disclosure. So what I mean by that is the complete, there could be a rational choice. The information set which is being shared, the space, complete space, is so huge that the user may not be able to access an IoT service in an effective way. So there is no rational choice which can be made by the user. Okay. Now, psychological biases. So for example, the perception of immediate benefits What do I mean by that? Of course, there is another slide which will make it very clear. So I think I'll wait till we go to that particular slide. Just remember this term, psychological bias. Okay. Now, trade-offs between business needs to collect and process the data and rights to privacy. So there is something of a tension between the market's need for data collection and correlation to support the innovation. See, as I've said, we are talking about advancement here. So while the government, the regulatory bodies may support the balance on one or the other direction. So this having a balance between this two things, that is the business needs and the privacy of the people, having a balance between these two things is another ethical challenge. The sixth one is cost of implementing privacy enhancing or data protection solutions. These are known as PET solutions. That is privacy enhancing solutions which are there. And the cost of implementing these solutions, it is going to have some cost. And who is going to bear that cost? Nobody knows. So who is going to bear that cost? Whether government is going to bear the cost of implementing these solutions, or whether the vendors, the hardware manufacturers are going to bear, or whether the service providers are going to bear the cost. So this is another challenge. Even if we think of implementing these solutions, who is going to bear the cost is a question. Accountability. So the accountability in terms of users' privacy. So who, if anything happens tomorrow, if due to leakage of information from my mobile phone, if anything happens in my house, okay, who is responsible for it? These are all smart devices which we are talking about. Are we going to see a smart camera in your home? No. Who is responsible for? Who is accountable? Who is responsible for have happened with the privacy? Okay, so this is again a challenge, and there is no framework which defines or which gives the best practice for all these things, or there's no mind map, okay, for these things. Online and offline identity. So it is difficult to separate the online information from the offline information, because finally, the complete blog goes online. So, so it could reach to, if there's some delimiter for this, it would really help. Digital divide, we have already seen what it is, so I'll not go into the depth of it. Now, conformance to some regulatory framework. So the definition, implementation of conformance to regulations is hampered by two factors. One is the speed of evolution of IoT can be faster. So see, IoT is evolving at one side. Are we doing anything about rules and regulations? So they have to go hand in hand. But sometimes what happens is policies and decisions take their own time, okay, to come up. And the speed of evolution, because it involves a lot of private players, industry players, so they have to capture the market. So in that case, the speed of evolution is going to be great. However, whether the policy decisions are being taken, so no. So there might be some lag. They might not be hand in hand, and it could cause some delay. So in that case, advancement happens, and then there is no regulatory framework in place. It might lead to a lot of issues. Now, if in the meantime, when the advancements are happening, if some IoT solutions are already deployed, consider the smart cities today. Okay, so some solutions are already deployed in smart cities, and after that, the regulatory framework comes. How to, go for a brownfield approach? How to make sure that these solutions which are already deployed now imbibe all these new, regulations? How to ensure that? Nobody knows that, and no thought has been given to it per se. And it could be very expensive as well, expensive affair as well. And then support for dynamic context. So storing of data. So all these things, the complete transmission of data is something which could lead to an ethical challenge. Now, when I was talking about delineation, what I meant was this Venn diagram, which this image which you see here. So as I have been telling, IoT is not new. So IoT is a combination of the things which are listed here. That is the future internet, mobile computing, ambient intelligence, cloud computing, big data. So there is no clear boundary which is defined that this is what IoT is. So no, because it is a set of technologies which we are trying to bring under one umbrella, and hence there's no delineation. Now, some of the ethical issues is one more ethical issue could be to treat fairly all persons regardless of factors like race, religion, gender, disability, age, or national origin. So when we are advancing, we should not leave these people behind. When I'm advancing and when I'm developing an IoT solution, let me quote an example here. At CDAC, when we did the project of, smart navigation inside a building, uh, earlier, it was just a smart navigation, which where we had used, the Wi-Fi, uh, routers which are located in the building, and we had used the fingerprinting mechanism in order to navigate the user inside the building. And then there was to train the whole algorithm. It was all this Euclidean distance and KNN algorithm which was used. Now, in this case, if we put a disabled person who enters a CDAC building tomorrow, with disabled, I mean, there is Advanced Technology Blind Learning School here in Pune University. Okay, so now the blind person who is differently abled, so if that person comes and uses the same navigation system, will he be able to use it? Okay, of course he'll be able to use that system, but what about the accuracy? Now, for a normal person like us, if I tell if my application, the Android application which the person uses, if it tells the person to move 4 steps in front and then take left, a normal person could see whether there is a door on left or whether there is a passage on left or not. However, think of a person who is differently abled or a blind who is planted in the exactly same scenario, and the application accuracy is not 95 or 100% for that matter. So what if he turns left and there's no passage there or there's no door there and he bumps against a wall? So when we build an IoT solution, it is important to have a person from all, genders, religions, disabled. All these people should be thought of when we build the solution. Then respect the privacy of others and honor the confidentiality. So these are some takeaways. Then should we assume that our lives and behavior are being monitored at all times is another thing. One of the best examples, I'll come to it, when the government of Germany was trying to put smart meters under the smart city initiative. There was a great resolution which happened for that particular initiative, because the smart meters were considered as spying devices by the citizens of Netherlands, saying that they could not only catch the readings, however they could also see what is happening inside the house. The same case is with the smart TVs which you have. What if they have a planted camera into it? These things have happened. If you actually see some of the IoT devices hacks which have happened, these you could get some popular case studies which have happened. Okay, then are we monitoring the lives or specific aspects of lives of everyone to reduce the risk of each of us? I think we have already seen these ethical issues like social justice and digital divide. Then the trust, the blurring of context, as I have shown you that Venn diagram. Even one more example, I'll show you what do we mean by blurring of context, agency and autonomy. So one by one, if we go through this, the social justice and digital divide. So the human society on a whole follows social rules, manners and etiquette. Okay, so we have to think of the special need people like elderly, children. Okay, when we build any IoT application, we have to think of the elderly people as well, because for them it's a great phobia to even hold the smartphone. So if you are making every application an Android application, how are these people going to connect, right? So these things have to be thought of. Then trust. So no knowledge of what information is actually shared with whom. I think we have seen a lot about this, so I'll not elaborate through each one of it. But here I would like to quote this example where the Dutch government, as I have said, was planning to implement the smart meters, and they were considered spying devices by the population. So if no trust, how can we go ahead with the solution? And then that in turn hampers the advancement, we could say. Then yes, so blurring of context. So as I have said, in this smart office, there are multiple applications which are playing a role. However, the environments are mediated. So the kitchen, living room, shopping mall, schools. So these are all everyday environments. So everything is connected to everything. So there is no clear line which is drawn saying that this particular sensor or this particular solution will only handle kitchen. Okay, so there's no clarity in terms of what is being mediated and what mediates. So for example, let's again take the smart grid example. So in a private sphere, the smart meter could be a way to store information, okay, on a private behavior. And a public sphere, it is one of the fast, efficient, and reliable way to distribute electricity. So see how somebody presumes the same device in a different way. It depends on the stakeholders' perception of that device. Okay. Now, agencies, a social contract between people and objects. So the objects act and decide in invisible but intentional ways on behalf of human users, right? So once you are a part of the complete IoT ecosystem, your actions won't be fully controllable. You won't be able to control the complete thing. Okay. At times you have to leave it to the system. So who is the agent here? Is it a user or an object? You won't be able to understand. So here, opting out, overruling, these options should be there, and the user should be at the highest, access level to decide what he wants and what he does not. There should not be human agents. However, this is not what machine learning says. This is not what IoT says. There are going to be human agents who are going to decide on your part. Okay, so whether we are looking forward to it or not. Yes, so psychological biases, as I told you earlier. So this is one very interesting which I came across. So the person says we want to implant an RFID tag. So the other person says that no, the response of the user is no, that will violate my right. Now this person says no, we want to implant this tag on you as it is also it also has a cell phone, it has a digital camera, and it has an MP3 player. So lot many perks with the RFID tag, and the user immediately agrees to it. Okay, so it's cool. So what I mean by here is, even you think of the free Wi-Fi which we get, it is a great blunder to connect to any free Wi-Fi. However, if it is free, it is good, is what is the general assumption. So we tend to connect to it, and it could lead to lot of hacking issues, and we could land in a trouble. So that is the psychological bias which we have. So it all is a game of human psychology. And now, yes, one of the issue was autonomy. I think we have gone through it. So it is about the miniaturization and invisibility. So any smart object can be perceived by the user as an ordinary object, but actually it would already violate the principle of informed consent. Okay, so whether the person is informed about that use or not is something which is going to matter here. Okay, now if we see about the major worries, this is not specifically related to any IoT per se. However, if we see, there are top 5 things the consumer can fear about misuse by the cyber criminals. So one, there is statistics which is given here. If we think of the statistics pertaining to India, you can see the credit and debit card information is prone to 80% misuse, passwords to 77%, personal emails 70%, photographs to 69, national ID number like your Aadhaar, which is coming up, could be 69%. The next one is more interesting. So here, what are the actions? How should you prepare for it? What are the actions which you can take in order to keep your information private? So you have to change your passwords regularly for Indians, which is dark blue. So it is the biggest action which we have to do, which we don't do, is what is the presumption. So we have to change our passwords regularly. We have to change the privacy settings. We have to avoid using or logging into public or Wi-Fi access points. We have to avoid storing sensitive and classified data on our devices. We have to turn off. This is a very basic thing. Everybody has a Wi-Fi router in the homes. However, how many of you tend to turn it off when it is not used, especially at nights or especially when you are going out of the house? Kindly turn off your Wi-Fi router when it is not in use. So these are various advantages, and I think we all know and we have already gone through multiple aspects and what are the advantages. Okay, so yes, so this again there are multiple policy recommendations. Digital divide should be addressed. There should be transparency, vendor regulations. So when the devices are manufactured, at that time itself, the vendor regulations and certification should happen. Okay, there should be transparency of public information, more and more research on what could be done in order to secure or ethically build the IoT devices. For certifications, there are multiple labs like ICSA lab, FCC certification, which will quality check the IoT devices. However, first of all, the practices, the best practices or the conformance standards should be defined, okay, for the IoT devices. Then this is one open source policy-based approach, which is SECIT. I'll end with this SECIT complete, what it is. So this is an open source solution which can be integrated with the IoT system. Okay. So here, what it does is it has this policy enforcement block, that is preventive enforcement block, which will help you in deciding what to allow, what to deny, and what to modify, and so on and so forth. So you can see the complete design of SECIT, the architecture on the left hand side. So the usage is regulated through profiles, and the profiles are sets of policy configurations and rules. So it is like any other policy reinforcement mechanism. However, this is one of the implementations. So here, the policy decision point, it receives the event notification from the policy enforcement point, and the policy decision point will evaluate the security policies and will give the response. Okay, so it has custom libraries. So PEPs are embedded in IoT ecosystem, IoT system. So IoT system could be your router or your Raspberry Pi. So using standard techniques, there are a lot of custom libraries and runtime instrumentation things which are available. So it works on event, condition, and action. So when an event occurs, what is the condition? Whether the event is allowed, whether event could be anything, a sensor trying to access or the sensor trying to give data, whether the sensor is allowed or whether it is denied. So these all things can be defined prior. Okay, let's see this. This is the UI of SECIT. So if you can see here, the complete rule model is defined. So the protect health data. So allow access to it if there is an emergency for the patient and started in these many time steps. Okay, so all the event and conditions can be defined inside SECIT, and the authorizations can be defined. So here the policy framework, how it can happen is we have what we have on the left hand side is we have this generic citizens, employees, and certified bodies, and this is our IoT system. Okay, and we have SECIT here, which is lying here. So if you can see, this is the structure which possibly the government or the regulatory frameworks can come up with, where the IoT device manufacturer will provide the concrete IoT system model, and it will go through the complete the enforcement policies will be defined. It will go through the SECIT interface. And for the profiles to be established in SECIT, the inputs will be given by various authorities and government bodies, based on which the profiles will be decided. And this all enforceable policies will be distributed to the IoT ecosystem, the IoT system or the IoT application or the IoT solution which you are trying to build. This is how the SECIT can fit into the complete policy framework, and this is how it can play a great role and have some ethical design of the IoT is what we can achieve with this. Okay, so I think these are the references, and that brings me to the end of my session. And I hope the ethical practices have not brought you down in terms of building IoT solution. However, it is just some sort of awareness which is essential when we build any IoT solution or when we build any IoT middleware per se. So I would like to end my session with this. And thank you again for listening to me. And if any questions are there, I would like to take them up.
Is how we can take benefit of edge computing technology for heterogeneous devices and which is used to deploy them in IoT applications.
See, edge computing is what? So see, basically we are trying to achieve modularization. We are moving towards the era of edge computing where the edge devices and the performance itself can be taken care. And there are a lot of open source things which are available, which you can actually use the edge devices and deploy it on the edge devices. And later on, this is how you can achieve the modularization and you can have it connected to your IoT middleware. So that is the modularization and the complete flow which you can achieve.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. The next question is, what is the best middleware for grid computing?
No, see, I cannot quote any for grid computing is the question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
No, I don't think the question stands in purview of this discussion because we are talking about IoT middlewares here. So I won't be able to, quote, though I know certain middlewares, but I won't be able to quote anything here.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. The next question, how to evaluate the IoT middleware performance? And in related with, the next question is, how to calculate the overhead of IoT middleware?
So there was a voice cut from your end. How to calculate the overhead? After that, I did not get.
How to calculate overhead of IoT middleware? And how to evaluate the performance of IoT middleware?
Yes, so evaluating the performance, I would say middleware is nothing but it is a set of software procedures which are basically sitting on any server. So middleware is like a hosted thing which can, so to evaluate the performance, it means how many maximum number of devices are able to connect to your middleware. So you could have a sort of checklist. In addition to that, you will also need some load balancing things because you will have hundreds and thousands of devices possibly which will be connecting to your middleware. So you have to have a certain check and you can write scripts which will help you understand, how many. So you have to load test that particular middleware as well. So the generic things which we use for any application, for performance testing of any application, are applicable to the middleware as well. So it is nothing which is new, which is being formed. So any software application, the kind of things which we use for that are the same things which are applicable to the middleware.
Thank you, ma'am. And the last question is, how IoT is useful in smart city development?
Yes, see, because the smart city applications, if you see majority of the smart city applications are nothing because it is a smart city. So we already have some cities in place, but we have to make them smarter. So what do we mean by that is how can we automate multiple things across the city. It could start right from the fast tags which we have today, where when you pay the tolls, the automatic scanning of the tag happens. So you can see the load which is reduced on the complete system. Okay, so this is one of the application of smart cities. So like this, there could be a set of applications, and IoT is nothing but it is just making anything, bringing it on the internet and making it smarter. So today, the complete linkage has happened just with the FASTag solution, right? So this is how there are multiple applications. If you go through any smart city which is there, you might find many, because smart cities, when they were declared, they have floated many requests for proposals. So if we go through them, you will see there are so many applications, and many of them, not all I would say, but many of them can be enabled by IoT. And that is the reason it is important technology in smart city applications.
Thank you, ma'am. That's it from the participant sides. Thank you, ma'am, for conducting such informative and enlightening sessions on the IoT middleware and system design. You nicely cover all the points of IoT ethics, how to secure the IoT middleware, the ethical challenges in IoT, and some real life examples, which really help us all the participants to develop secure IoT applications. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
And ma'am, please accept this small vote of appreciations from Shan Anchor Kutch Engineering College, IT department.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Dear participants, the feedback come attendance link is pasted in Q&A sections. Please fill that feedback. And the next session will start at 3:30 p.m. sharp. So stay tuned.